They were not supposed to fight each other. They spoke the same language, prayed to the same God, carried the same flag. And yet, America went to war with itself. What followed was not just a war. It was a story of power, fear, betrayal, and a truth that still haunts the nation today. Chapter 1. A nation divided before it even began. Long before the first gunshot echoed across the fields of America, the war had already begun, quietly, invisibly, inside the hearts of its people. The United States was young. Barely decades had passed since independence, but beneath the surface of unity, two very different worlds were growing. In the North, cities were rising, factories roared with machines, and people believed in progress, industry, and a future built on innovation. But in the South, life moved differently. Vast plantations stretched across the land. Cotton was king, and behind that kingdom stood a brutal truth. Millions of enslaved people, forced to work under a system that treated them not as humans, but as property. This difference wasn't just economic, it was moral, it was political, it was explosive. Chapter 2. The lie everyone knew. Many Americans at the time claimed the conflict was about states' rights, but deep down, everyone knew what it was really about: slavery. The South depended on it. Their entire economy was built around it. Without enslaved labor, their wealth would collapse. The North, while not entirely free from racism, was increasingly against the expansion of slavery. Many believed it was morally wrong. Others feared it gave the South too much power. So the question became dangerous. Should slavery spread, or should it end? And every new territory added to the United States turned that question into a battlefield. Chapter 3. The Breaking Point. Tension grew with every passing year. Compromises were made and broken. Promises were given and ignored. Violence began to erupt even before the war officially started. In Kansas, pro-slavery and anti-slavery groups didn't debate, they killed each other. Streets ran with blood, homes were burned, families destroyed. America was already fighting a civil war. It just hadn't been declared yet. Then came a moment that changed everything. A new president was elected, someone the South deeply feared, not because he promised to immediately end slavery, but because he represented a future where slavery might not survive. And for the South, that future was unacceptable. So one by one, Southern states made a shocking decision. They would leave the United States. They believed they had the right to do so. After all, they had joined voluntarily. Why couldn't they leave? So they formed their own nation, a new government, a new flag, a new identity. But there was one problem. The North did not accept this. To them, this wasn't independence, it was rebellion. And American Civil War, The Untold Truth, Part 2. The Turning Point of Freedom and Fire. The war had already taken thousands of lives, but now it was about to change its meaning forever. Because this was no longer just a war to save a nation, it was becoming a war to redefine freedom itself. Chapter 11. A War Without Direction. In the early years of the war, something felt uncertain. The Union, the North, claimed it was fighting to preserve the United States, not to end slavery. And the Confederacy, the South, claimed it was fighting for independence, not just to protect slavery. But beneath these official reasons, a deeper truth was unfolding. Soldiers were dying, families were suffering, and yet the purpose of the war still felt incomplete. Many in the North began to ask a dangerous question. If we are fighting, why not end slavery completely? Chapter 12. The Man Under Pressure. At the center of this storm stood one man.
Abraham Lincoln. He was not a radical at the beginning. He did not start the war to immediately free every enslaved person, but the war was changing him. Every battlefield report, every murder, every letter from grieving families, it weighed on him. He understood something many others did not. If the Union wanted to win this war, it had to change what it was fighting for. Chapter 13. The Decision That Changed Everything. In 1862, after months of war and carnage, a decision was made, one that would shock the world. Lincoln announced the Emancipation Proclamation. It declared that all enslaved people in Confederate territories would be free. But here's the untold truth. It didn't immediately free all enslaved Manish. Instead, it changed the purpose of the war. Now, the Union was not just fighting to survive, it was fighting to end slavery, and that changed everything. Chapter 14. A New Kind of Soldier. Something remarkable began to happen. Black men, many of them formerly enslaved, began to join the Union Army. They were no longer just victims of the system. They became fighters for their own freedom. One of the most famous units to emerge was the 54th Massachusetts Infantry Regiment. They faced discrimination. They were paid less. They were often sent into the most dangerous battles, but they fought with unmatched courage. Because for them, this wasn't just war, it was liberation. Chapter 15. The War Turns Brutal. As the war continued, it became darker, more ruthless. Gone were the early illusions of honor and glory. Now it was about